What's up, you guys? Welcome to the video. Today's SpinMaster collection video. We'll go ahead and start the video with Gears Blue Thunder. Now this thing. Gold chassis wheels with white roll cage and tires. Golden beaky printing with white ice treads. Moving on to Ice Grave Digger. Now this thing. Blue chassis and wheels with white roll cage with white beaky printing, white ice treads. Got clear blue tires. Moving on to Zombie Megalodon. Now this thing. Black chassis with red roll cage with green wheels. Black beaky printing with glitter treads. Moving on to Galaxy's Monster Mutt Dalmatian. Now this thing. Scion chassis with Scion beaky printing and bead locks. Got red, blue roll cage and wheels with dark purple tires. Moving on to Fire Son of a Digger. Now this thing. Red chassis wheels with red roll cage. Got red, yellow treads. Got red beaky printing and right there. Moving on to Hunter Max D. Now this thing. Gray chassis and got brown roll cage, mahogany wheels, and chrome beaky printing with gray Hunter treads. Moving on to Gears Alien Invasion. Everything looks same as Blue Thunder. Moving on to Ice Dragon. Everything looks same as Grave Digger. Moving on to Zombie El Toro Loco. Now this thing. Black chassis with yellow roll cage. Got red wheels, black beaky printing with glitter treads. Moving on to Galaxy's Bakugan Dragonoid. Everything looks the same as a Dalmatian. Moving on to Fire Great Clips Mohawk Warrior. Everything looks the same as Son of a Digger. Moving on to Hunter Earthshaker. Everything looks the same as Son of a Max T. Moving on to the Neo Galaxy Grave Digger. Now this thing. With white chassis and light purple roll cage with pink wheels, teal tires, white beaky printing. Moving on to the Nitro Grave Digger. Now this thing. Pink chassis with black roll cage and tires with purple BKT printing and bead locks. Got teal wheels. Moving on to BKT Customs Gravedigger. Now this thing, green chassis, silver chassis and wheels with green roll cage and bead locks, BKT printed tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Gravedigger Orange. Now this thing, silver chassis with orange roll cage and wheels with BKT printed tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Gravedigger Red. Now this thing, red silver chassis with red roll cage and wheels, BKT printed tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Gravedigger Purple. Now this thing, black chassis with purple roll cage with blue wheels, BKT printed tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Son of a Digger. Now this thing, silver chassis and wheels with blue roll cage with purple bead locks, BKT printed tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Son of a Digger Yellow. Now this thing, silver chassis and wheels with yellow roll cage, purple bead locks, BKT printed tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Velociraptor. Now this thing, silver chassis with black roll cage and wheels, BKT printed tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Jurassic Attack. Now this thing, silver chassis with purple roll cage and wheels, BKT printed tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Bad News Travels Fast. Now this thing, orange chassis and bead locks, up black roll cage and silver wheels, BKT printed tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Aftershock. Now this thing, yellow chassis and wheels with blue roll cage with BKT printed tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Northern Nightmare. Now this thing, silver chassis with red roll cage with orange wheels, BKT printed tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Blue Thunder. Now this thing, silver chassis with green roll cage and wheels, BKT tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Dragon. Now this thing, silver chassis with maroon roll cage with green wheels, BKT tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Megalodon. Now this thing, silver chassis and roll cage with aqua wheels, BKT tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Rainbow Blast. Now this thing, red chassis with white roll cage and wheels, BKT tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Kraken. Now this thing, a copper chassis with dirt brown roll cage, pink wheels, BKT tires. Moving on, and now moving on to the original Gravedigger. Now this thing, silver chassis with black roll cage and tires with yellow wheels. Moving on to Gravedigger the Legend. Now this thing, black chassis wheels, black chassis roll cage and tires with silver wheels. Moving on to the retro Gravedigger. Now this thing, black chassis with green roll cage and wheels with black tires. Moving on to Gravedigger number 7. Now this thing, silver chassis and wheels with green roll cage with flotation tires. Moving on to Gravedigger, the Green Ghost. Now this thing, silver chassis and wheels with green roll cage with flotation tires. Moving on to 1982, the original Gravedigger. Now this thing, black chassis with yellow wheels with flotation tires. Moving on to 1984 Grain Truck Gravedigger. Now this thing, got black chassis and wheels with flotation tires. Moving on to 1986, the Grandma Gravedigger. Now this thing, black chassis with brown wheels with flotation tires. Moving on to the green Nitro Neon Gravedigger. Now this thing, green chassis, roll cage and tires with white wheels. Moving on to the blue Nitro Neon Son of a Digger. Now this thing, light blue chassis and tires with dark blue roll cage with white wheels. Moving on to the yellow Nitro Neon Earthshaker. Now this thing, yellow chassis and tires with black roll cage with white wheels. Moving on to the pink Nitro Neon Calavera. Now this thing, pink chassis wheels and tires with black roll cage. Moving on to the teal Nitro Neon Blue Thunder. Now this thing, teal chassis and wheels with brown roll cage and tires. Moving on to the lime green Nitro Neon Gravedigger. Now this thing, lime green chassis wheels and tires with black roll cage. Moving on to the 2024 green Max T. Now this thing, green chassis and wheels with silver roll cage with yellow tires. Moving on to the 2024 Orange Max T. Now this thing, orange chassis and wheels with maroon roll cage with yellow wheels. Yellow tires. Moving on to the orange Nitro Neon Max T. Now this thing, yellow chassis, orange chassis wheels and tires with black roll cage. Moving on to the yellow Nitro Neon Max T. Now this thing, silver chassis with yellow roll cage and tires with black wheels. Moving on to the green Nitro Neon Max T. Now this thing, silver chassis with green roll cage and tires with black wheels. Moving on to the purple Nitro Neon Max T. Now this thing, purple chassis wheels and tires with white roll cage. Moving on to Custom Elementals Trucks Gravedigger. Now this thing, purple chassis with black roll cage with green and yellow wheels on the left and orange and red wheels on the right with blue tires. Moving on, last but not least, to custom phased out son of a digger. Now this thing, white chassis with blue roll cage with 2 red wheels, 1 black wheel, and 1 white wheel, 2 white tires and 2 black tires. And that'll be it. And make sure you like, subscribe. You turn on your notifications to my YouTube, Parker Wilson's Blinkedin's Amigos. So have fun, stay safe, amigos.